Good morning, everybody. Good to see ya. We'll get back to, we'll make sure we got time today for people to still connect and talk and catch up and everything. But do want to share a little bit, worship together. I've got some cool things and exciting things to share today. Some of them I'll share later, and one of them I'm going to share right now. And that is, I think I said, I can't remember now, when we skip church every other week, sometimes I can't remember what I actually announced and what I didn't. But I think, yeah, and I'm getting old. Thanks, Mike, for pointing that out. It's so good to have you back today, yeah. Yes, I'm old. That is also true. But it's nice to have the honesty in the front row, and I have it on this side usually. Now I have it on this side today. He's like, age. But for sure now, I'll confirm and say that it's absolute now. The young men in Zambia, the soccer team that we've been supporting, they took first place, and so so now they get to, not only is that exciting just on a like winning the championship kind of level, but for them that means now they get to move up to another, like a higher level of soccer league. So super exciting for them. Already said that could open up all sorts of possibilities for those young men in terms of even like school scholarships and stuff like that. So really incredible. And I just want to take a minute to share some. I think I shared these pictures last week, but these are some of the boys on the team. That's the full team down there on the bottom right. Just awesome young men. And I had a couple cool videos that they sent in the group chat thing, and the first one is them before their very first game of the season. And so again, this is, just keep in mind that this is a group of boys that come from the highest like level of poverty there, that most people wouldn't give a chance to play soccer. When Gabriel started his program years ago, they told him it wouldn't even last 1 year, that boys from this kind of area can't play at that level of soccer. So not only can they play at that level of soccer, but they won the league, and now they're moving up to a higher level of soccer. But in the program, it's very connected to, like, it's bringing in these kids that wouldn't have a chance, feeding them, but also sharing God's love with them. And so faith is a big part of what they do. And so this is them before the season starts, not knowing what the season holds, and kind of just before their first practice, just having a little worship service. I'm just celebrating, having a good time. So super proud of them. And then I wanted to share this one last thing because I thought it was cool. This is, you can't see super clear on the picture, but this is Francis. He was one of the boys that we worked with there. And after they told the boys that our church was helping them, again, they wouldn't have even got a chance to play in the playoffs if it wasn't for us sending the money to make that possible. So the first one says, "Hello, Pastor Andrew, hope you are well, and the family there really want to thank you for the funds they sent us. Truly appreciate. We were really hopeless, but God pulled through for us through you. Thank you so much. Greetings to everyone there in Jesus' name. Much love for you guys." And then he's just saying again down to the right, "Nothing really new. We're just excited that we're almost finishing the league on a good note. We wouldn't have done it without your help, both spiritually and financial. Thank you in the church. Can't wait to see you guys again. And then please pass my and the team's regards to the church family. Much love for your people. And pass my regards to Ethan Side." Him and Ethan really connected while they were there, so it was very cool. And then he's been trying to get me into soccer. We have a whole text thread where I was like, "I don't really understand soccer." And he's like, "It's not hard to understand." I was like, okay, well, it is for me. But anyways, that is just, I wanted to let you guys see that, because obviously that wouldn't have happened without your giving and your prayers, and all the way back to us even going to Zambia. But then specifically just recently being able to send the funds for them to stay in that league and compete and now move on. So it's hard when they're thousands of miles away and we don't get to see them, or interact with them, but there's a way for you to see and know that good things are happening through you and your giving. So, all right, well, with that, why don't you stand and we're going to worship, and I'm going to turn things over to Muriel and the worship crew. Just before we move to the next song, I know maybe some of you have heard and others of you haven't, but over the weekend, Sadie Rothrock, who's just, we all know, one of the most amazing little young ladies in the world, who struggled with having seizures her whole life, had a seizure when the Rothrocks were swimming and up in Tenasca, and actually went under and stopped breathing, and it was super scary, and they had to get her out of the water and do CPR on her and got her back, and they actually got a helicopter came and airlifted them back here to Spokane, and looked really obviously super scary and horrifying for Joel and Sarah and the Rothrocks to go through that, and Sadie. But in the amazing way that Sadie is, she's recovering really well. So they had to put tubes down her throat so that it could get the liquid and stuff out of her lungs, and they had her sedated for a while, but very quickly she was letting her parents know that she was cognizant, and by squeezing their fingers or things like that, and she just keeps recovering. So I keep getting messages from Joel that she's doing better and better, and they're hoping that they'll be able to take the tubes out tonight, but probably looks like for sure by tomorrow. So Sadie, in her amazing way, is fighting and recovering and just incredible. But I wanted to take some time today, just as our community that's here, to pray for her, to pray for the Rothrocks. I know they feel incredibly surrounded by people that love them and care for them and are praying for them. But as you can imagine, that's just a horrifying, terrifying thing to go through. So I want to ask you just to join with me as we pray for her. Jordan made a really cute sign that just says, "We love you, Sadie." Right, and we put it in the back. There's some pins back there, so if everybody could sign that today, we want to get that to Sadie so that she can see it and know that her community here loves her and is praying for her and cares for her. And I'll kind of keep us posted if there's things people can do at this point. They just need lots of prayer and love and good vibes sent their way. So will you join me in praying for them? God, I thank you that, as this last song said, you've and are faithful. And we don't always understand why things happen the way they do, and we don't understand why life can really be challenging at times, but in the middle of that, we know that you're faithful. And God, I thank you so much for Sadie, this incredible girl that has warmed all of our lives with her joy and her smile, and inspired us with the way that she fights. I just ask that you would continue to be there for her, that you would continue to work miracles in her life. You continue to give her the strength to fight and persevere in trying, challenging, almost impossible things. God, we ask that you would be there for the Rothrock family, for Joel and Sarah as parents, God, that somehow you would give them peace in the middle of this, that you would continue to give them grace, that you'd minister to their hearts and their minds, the trauma of what they've gone through, I just ask that they would so feel your healing power and love coursing through them in this season. I ask that you help us be family and community. Empower us to really love. Empower us to really be there for them and care for them and support them. We thank you that you made Sadie such a fighter. Continue to give her strength and your love and your grace in this time. Amen. Just don't forget today to sign that and write something sweet and nice to say. If you have to leave early for any reason, just make sure you stop back there first. All right, let's give the worship team a hand clap. They're awesome as always. I appreciate them doing that, especially here so often when it's not been a full band and all those sorts of things. They're brave just being up there, and love it. So thank you. Well, thank you. And there was light. I like that as well. Well, that has been said about me before. All right. Well, I'm just going to get into things here today. We're just going to share a little bit. And this will be a little bit of a different Sunday morning sharing. But I think we're good with different around here. And I think that needs to be something we embrace more and more and more. So I think that's going to be a theme for us here in the future. And that means I might be a little bit all over the map today. But I really want to talk about where I just feel like God has us as a church. This will be kind of the start of a discussion that we'll be having now for a while. And just to keep you from making any excuses in your mind to kind of disconnect maybe or think this doesn't apply to you, I just want to say right from the beginning that I really believe this next season, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter if you're watching from home and haven't yet made it back to being here at church. Where we go next, you have a place, and you're an important part. I really, really believe that where we're going next, all of you are needed, youngest to the oldest, people that have not been, that aren't even here yet, that are going to walk through the door, those that have been around for a while. Doesn't matter how involved you've been in different seasons, especially this last. So please don't tune me out. Just listen. Don't stop this video. Watch the rest of it. I'll try not to go too long. But last week I sent out an email, really I hope setting the stage for where we're going to be going these next few Sundays, actually the remainder of the summer. And I want to try to summarize that a bit today, but also kind of expound on it. And what I was talking about and what I'm realizing is that the church world, universal, not just our church, but universal, is really starting to come out of a weird season, as all of humanity is coming out of a weird season, right? This last couple years of pandemic have been wild and crazy, and we're just now kind of starting to get back to life. But for most people, not all, but for most, it's meant that they haven't been going to church for a long time. And not only that, but during the pandemic, not only have most people not been going to church, but even any sort of outward community expression of faith has pretty much been shut off, right? When you can't really see people or hang out with people or spend time with people, that's just a natural thing to happen. But it can be really hard to then get back into life. It can be hard, I think, to get back to church, back to community again. So just like I said maybe in my email, I really want to encourage those of you that are still at home to be praying, think about showing up here on Sunday. We're safe here. Seems like the world, at least America, at least where we are, is safer. So pray about being here. Think about it. If you don't feel like doing that, keep watching the videos at least so you're in step with what we're doing. But beyond this season just being strange, I think it's producing something that stereotypically scares the church, but that I think is a very healthy thing. And I think that is this season is producing questions, like getting people to really question things like, what is church? Why do I even go to church? Do I maybe not miss church and I haven't been there in a year and a half? And if I don't miss it, what does that mean about the church that I go to or the level of community that I have? And then even on a deeper level, probably questions about faith. I think for some people, just that active reality of faith hasn't been super present in this season, and that should lead to questions. And questions can be scary for people because that can lead us to all sorts of other questions, and it can lead us into seasons of change and of wrestling, and for some people that's challenging, and it causes us to just want to check out of the process altogether. And I don't want us to do that. I don't believe you are that type of people, but that temptation is always there. And so in the middle of all those questions, I think that's a really good place for us to be. I think it's a really good place for the church world universal to be. And I think it's good because if we let God lead us through those questions, kind of re-examining what we're doing and why, then it actually enables something new to grow out of that. Does that make sense? I don't think I'm saying anything too complex. Like, if we ask those questions and we relook at things, then we can actually change and grow. We can reassess what we're doing. And I think it's important for us to understand, as people and as the church, that growing and changing is good. It's good. It's good for us. It's good for the church. And yet, a lot of us hate to change. We fight it and we resist it, and we feel, partly because we feel out of control maybe when things are changing. I don't know, there's other reasons. Some of us just get comfortable in routine. But, what was that? Sorry, we've got some comedy going on over here. Oh, that's good. That's good. That was very... My family, just as an aside, drinks very loudly. Do any of you have family members that drink so loudly you can hear it when you're in another room? Like, okay, there's some of you. I see Nick is one of those. Well, my entire family is that way, so it's crazy. Wow. Yeah, I see how it is. Change. Well, we'll get to that. I'm changing in my own slow ways. Oh, man, this is going to be one of those kind of mornings. That's good. We're just being real today. As I've been thinking about it and thinking about change, I actually think that is, for me, one of the things that I think should define church. And I even hate using that word because I'm realizing so much, and I talked about this a few weeks ago, that we try so hard to define everything in our lives. Like, we want to define everything, but maybe this is something we'll talk about more. I don't think church is supposed to be definable. I don't think the idea of the church, like who we are as a community, that prizes Jesus is supposed to be something that's definable, because I think we should always be changing and growing. So I want to propose to you that as a people, as a community of believers, that we are, if we're always growing, then what is our expression of church should always be growing too. Does that make sense? Even though God's never changing on one aspect, right? Scripture tells us God never changes, and I believe that. I think it's obvious. It's actually obvious, but it's something that we miss all the time, is that the way God is expressing and relating to the creation is always changing. Like if you look through Scripture in different seasons and different times, it's always changing how he relates to his people. It's actually one of the amazing things that I'm becoming more and more mystified that we miss. Because it doesn't matter like where you're looking in Scripture, what the way God is relating with people is always different. And then we get to the New Testament, and it gets even crazier in terms of how the church is constantly changing and morphing and not looking like it did even months earlier. And somehow we've become really resistant to change, like the church has to stay the same forever. The church isn't supposed to be a definable institution, but rather I think the church is supposed to be this outflow of a specific community of faith, love for Jesus, and love for others. I want to keep talking about that in the weeks to come. But again, today I just want to throw out some thoughts for us as a church in terms of this change and how we're going to grow and what that might look like. And so for us, as I proposed in the email last week, I really want to take the rest of this summer to really start actively discussing our church and change and attempting to start moving towards that, attempting to become and grow as a community. And so I'm actually really excited about this. I've talked to some of you that are also excited about this. I know not everyone might be on board, but it's kind of too bad. It's just we're changing. You can be wherever you are in the process, but we're going to be changing and growing. And I think that's going to mean for many of you that you're going to come alive in a new way in this next season and find more of a place here in shaping who we become as a community. And I'll say this, and here's why, maybe where I am and why I'm excited about this, is that I love our community and I value it deeply. And I don't know how to, as just myself, in my own journey of faith, I don't know how to walk out active faith outside of a community of people to do that with. I don't know how it's possible. I haven't found it to be possible. And so I deeply value what we are. And I value the friendships, and I value the times and seasons that were different ways that we've walked out faith in those times and seasons. And as challenging as change can be, mostly because for me, that means I don't know necessarily if I'll have a job, maybe. I don't know if we'll still be at church. I don't know if anyone will stick around in those seasons, and that can be scary. As scary as that is, it's worth it to me because I want us to be a community of people that have a real active expression of faith. I want us to be a community that's growing and changing and seeing what that means for who God has for us to love and walk out life with. I think for me, I have this fear, and I want to give you this fear. That's a weird thing for a pastor to say, right? I want to give you this fear today. I want to share my fear with you. And my fear is this, is that my faith would just become a nostalgic idea. And I've seen that happen for so many people and even churches where their journey of faith kind of stalls out because they're just kind of running on the fumes of nostalgia. Does that make sense? They're living in the things that they experienced 15, 10, 20 years ago. And I'm not saying those experiences were bad. They were probably awesome. They were amazing things that God did, or amazing parts of walking out community with people or whatever it was, but it was from a long time ago. And I'll say this, I think it's awesome. I also love celebrating and remembering and reveling in what God has done. I think that's great. But if that's the only thing you're doing, if that's what's the only thing that's kind of driving or motivating your faith, I think it's going to get stale. And that scares me. I don't want to, so you can thank me for sharing my fear with you now. Nostalgia cannot power like a present, alive, right now kind of faith. If I can only focus on where I've been with God and not where I am or where I'm going or who I'm walking that out with now, I'm just not going to have a very alive faith, and that scares me. I don't want that. I think sometimes we can even trick ourselves in that if we surround ourselves all with people that have the same memories and the same experiences and the same things, right? That we can trick ourselves into thinking there's something active and real and right now, but maybe there's not. And so I hope that's something people are questioning in this season, like how real is my faith? How active is it? How much of an expression is there? And that's partly why I'm excited about change. It's partly why I'm excited about growing. It's because it's going to allow us to continue our journey of faith in this adventure that we're called to with God. And I think undoubtedly it will mean that we need new people and new experiences and new ways of doing church and being a community and showing God's love to one another. So again, what that means for us practically is that, for starters, we're going to spend this summer talking about, discussing, possibly debating who we're going to be as a church, what we want to look like, how we want to change, where we need to grow. And so we're going to do that by having a Sunday that's kind of like this, where we have worship and talk, and maybe somebody from the community will share what they're inspired about, and we'll talk about church on a big level or whatever it will be. But then we'll also, the next week, we'll rotate every other week, just circle around chairs and just discuss together. And I don't want anything to be off limits. We need to discuss and hear from everybody what we care about, where you're at, what you're re-looking at and rethinking about and questioning. And that's kind of how we'll do the rest of the summer. That makes sense? Sounds great. All right, I'm getting thumbs up from over here. I get mockery from over here, but I also get some support, so that's good. A little bit of both. So the next few weeks, that's how we'll do things, and it'll be good. I want you to be thinking and praying about, hopefully you already are, what's important to you as a church. But today I got a few just starter questions for you, and I want your first reactions. This is also going to be some questions that we kind of dive into deeper, but I want your first reactions. So you kind of, those of you that have been around for a while know the routine. Pull out your phones here for a minute. Go ahead, everybody, pull out your phones. Pull up my number on your phone. If you do not have my number, I'm going to give it to you right now. And I'll give you just a little bit of time to answer these, but I really just want first impressions. So don't overthink it. We'll have time to overthink this over the next few weeks. Randy's already ratting out Diana like she's not going to be. You can just pass the phone to one of the kids, Ty, and they can do that. If that's easier for you, then you can participate in the weeks where you have lots of time to overthink it. Yeah. However you want to go about this. Okay, so first question. What are 3 of the most important things to you when it comes to church? Again, you don't have time to super elaborate on this. Just like 1 or 2 sentences or a phrase. And then these are things that hopefully you'll ponder and think about and consider in weeks to come as we're talking about this. What's important to you when you think about church? What is it that you feel like this is what church should be? It could be something we're not missing or doing yet here. So it's your your idea of church. What are 3 of the most important things to you? Yes, you can do 4 if you want. If you're being an overachiever, you can do 4. Okay. Everybody done with that? Close to? You're done, Ty? Okay, awesome. Okay, good. That's what I want. Okay. Question number 2. What are, if you need to, you might have to put a 1 and a 2 just so I don't get confused when I'm reading it later. What are 2 places, because I'm old, so it can get really confusing sometimes. What are 2 places you believe we could or need to grow as a church? 2 areas, 2 things that we could grow in. I really don't know why I didn't think of this texting thing earlier. I just love it. Thanks. Yeah? Are you saying that mockingly? Or are you? Okay. All right. Thank you. I've had cell phones forever. How did I not think of this earlier? Yes. Okay. We get it. And I know this next question could overlap with the one I just asked, but in my mind, slow down? Okay. In my mind, it's a little bit different. It might not be in yours, so. What? The second question is, what are 2 places you believe we could or need to grow as a church? And third is, what is something you would like to see more of or something happen at church? So again, it might overlap with 2 if you feel like that's something that where we need to grow, but this might not be a place that we need to grow as much as like, I would just like to see this happen more at church. Two, again, is 2 places you believe we could or need to grow. If you got 2, go ahead and throw 2 out there. If you got 3, throw 3 out there. Whatever just quick comes to your mind. I just don't want you to spend too much time thinking or overthinking that right now. Third question is, what is something you would like to see happen at church or more of at church? One or the other. Or both. Next time I will. Good. And if you don't have your phones today or your parents are taking too long on their phone and you want to send me something later, please lullaby. send me some stuff later, right? Okay, well, that's fair. Well, if it comes to you later, maybe it'll hit you later. Okay, you can finish up as I'm kind of sharing, but I want to kind of wrap up today by sharing just maybe a little more where I believe that we're going, at least some of the places that I think that God wants to take us in this change. And obviously, as pastor, I think about this community a lot. I think about all of you, and I think about those that we don't even know yet, and I think about those that have been a part of this community, and I just deeply value what we have built and what we've walked through together, and I value what we've grown into, what we are growing into, the difficult seasons, the fun seasons, the challenge, all of it. I value it deeply. And I think if I'm honest, sometimes maybe that's my biggest challenge, is to not get frustrated with people that I think are taking for granted how awesome our community is. That sounds horrible. I'm just being honest with you, though. Right? That we've grown into something awesome, and I value this, and I value what we have. And I've always, from I think the very beginning of when we started being the bridge, believed that God was going to, I think because we were people coming out of being burnt out on evangelical church and questioning all sorts of things and re-looking at faith in our community, I just always believed that God was going to bring people into our community that were burnt out on church, hurt by church, frustrated by church, and didn't want kind of the normal evangelical experience. And so my story, and I think other stories of our stories, is kind of coming out of, and I'll say this, just becoming increasingly disillusioned and dissatisfied with the evangelical church. That was definitely my experience. I think many of other people that have been the bridge. And so for a season, I think it was good for us, and we all really unplugged from the normal church world. Is that fair? Those of you that have been around for a while, like massively unplugged from all of that. And it was wonderful and good, and it's been a wonderful journey. And sure enough, over our years as the bridge, God has brought others that are trying to unplug from that or questioning, and it's been great. And I remember once Nicole Allen telling me that she really sees the bridge, she really sees our church like a hospital. And she's like, a hospital is a place that's taking in hurting people, sick people, all the time, and they're getting care, they're getting love, they're getting healing in a hospital. But sometimes, like hospitals, it's just chaotic and a mess. I think that describes our church at times, just chaotic and a mess, and you never know what's going to be going on. And also, like hospitals, as people get healthy, then they leave, right? They go back to wherever their life is. And I think we've had lots of people that have come into our community over time and been okay to just be and then move on. And I like that metaphor. I've liked that. And I have a feeling that is maybe something that God's going to take us into even deeper in this next season. I believe that part of I'll say this, part of my own growth this year, I've done some growing this year. And maybe some of you don't know this, but done some pretty big things. Like, this is just an example, but I'm a dog guy now. Like, there's a dog in my family. There's a dog in my house. Yeah. No. Yeah, shoot. Randy knows me. Yeah, very much like that. Yes. I'm chained to the boat, and I'm sailing, much like Bob. Randy, yes. How did you? I laughed while the dog ate the mouse because that's what dogs do. I am all for dogs being dogs. Thanks. See, Randy just declared I'm a dog guy. Yes. The other day, my daughter's new baby dog, who she's just obsessed with, yes, whatever, at the house found a dead mouse. And Jordy actually was like, Neil, I think you need to check out what your dog's eating. And then I just heard the loudest blood-curdling screams as Jael was like, oh my God, it's a mouse! Get it out! Get it out! And she's just screaming like, get it out. I was like, that's what dogs do. It found a mouse. That's awesome. I'm glad there's not a dead mouse just around. It was, yeah, it was complete bananas at my house for a while. I can't even express to you the noise level, the screaming for just this little tiny mouse. So yes, I'm a dog guy now. Thank you, Randy. I'm a dog guy now. And here's how I know, Mike. I'm not a dog guy like you, but now when I see other people's dogs, I'm like, that's a cute dog. See? Okay, thank you. I will admit I don't understand much or know much about dogs, but I'm liking dogs now. So that's a step for me. That was a big thing. Another just kind of big thing, yes. Someday that could be on the horizon. Probably after you move out. Probably after you move out, Jordy. The other thing, many of you know I've hated snow and started cross-country skiing this year. So that is like mind-boggling for some people that know me. Now, to the thing that may be the biggest of all, most of you also know that after many years of saying I would never be on social media, I got on social media. So those are three pretty big areas of change. And so here's what I'm going to say about social media. No, okay, I'm not even going to try to say anything about social media. But this is what I started learning. And this has been, I think, a healthy thing about social media for me. I realized after being so unplugged from the church world for a very long time, as I got on social media, I quickly started seeing that there were more people questioning where the church is and faith and things than I have ever seen in my lifetime. And so 15 years ago when we started the Bridge, I think most of us felt very alone in where we were in our faith at the time. We were asking tough questions about church and God and faith, and I'm not saying by any means that we were the only church going through that or only people, but it was just harder to find others doing that. Social media wasn't as prevalent, and it was just like, man, I don't think anybody else is asking these questions. We're just going to have to figure out how we're going to do church, and part of how we're going to do that is by unplugging from what church was or supposed to look like. But now there's thousands of people asking the same questions that we were asking, and there's thousands of people kind of standing up to the church world universal, and that number's growing daily. And it's like a whole movement now called the deconstruction movement and progressive church. And for the most part, it's awesome and needed and good. And they're calling the church out and they're trying to change. It kind of cracks me up because I think you can take the Christian out of the evangelical church, but it takes a long time to take the evangelical church out of the Christian. Like even the fact that we just have to label things, right? So it's a deconstruction and it's the progressive church movement. And really what we're talking about is just changing and growing and asking questions. Like we've been doing this for a long time, but we have to label it now. But whatever, we got to do what we got to do sometimes to grow. Yes. Pruning. It is. You're right. And it cracks me up because we have to label it something, but again, I think seeing that and realizing that has made me, again, just value what we've gone through and what we built. And I think that is going to be a big part of this change for us in this next season, is that I think it's time for us to get a little bit more serious about reaching out to people that are now in the same place we were 15, 20 years ago, asking those questions, wanting to see. We've been building a community that's a little different for 15 years. And so I think it's really something that's in my heart on multiple levels, is that we would be a community that reaches out to let people know we're a safe place for them to be wherever they are in the journey. And so big on my list is, in terms of change and what's for us, is this deconstruction community, Christians that are out there. And I think you all know them. I was just talking with Jim Anderson before church today, and he was telling me about a friend of his that hasn't wanted to walk in the doors of a church for a very long time. And as him and Jim were talking, he's like, I want to hear more about where you guys are as a church. I would maybe come check you guys out. And so I think there's going to be more people. If we are looking for that, if we're aware of that, it gives us a place to reach out and invite people to be a part of our ongoing questioning, our ongoing changing. And that leads me to something exciting, an exciting announcement I'm kind of pumped about today, right? And it's this. One of the first accounts that I started finding on social media was this guy called The New Evangelical. Some of you follow him. I've seen cool guys named Tim Whitaker. And he's this amazing dude that started a social media account less than a year ago and already has like 20,000 followers. Like, very quickly, this thing has grown, and he's been interviewed now on numerous different places. And I love him because, unlike some deconstruction people, he really loves the church. And he actually really believes that the evangelical church can be reformed. I'm not sure I believe that, but I appreciate his hope and his faith. And I'd encourage you to check him out. Here's just some of his posts. I like him because he gets after it just a little bit. These are kind of more recent. You would think Bible literists would sell their property, live in small communities, and hold all their things in common, but maybe they don't take the Bible as literal as they think. Isn't it strange that if someone gets saved and they're LGBTQ, they must renounce their sexuality immediately, but if they get saved and they're rich, they don't have to sell all of their possessions and give to the poor? Evangelicals love to talk about a fallen world, but refuse to acknowledge fallen systems. Imagine if we pledged this, he put out on the 4th of July. Imagine if we pledged our allegiance to the poor and oppressed instead of the flag and the empire. I like this dude a lot. I think he's really cool. I'd encourage you to check him out. But we actually have started talking and kind of going back and forth a little bit, and we're going to be bringing him here in September. So he's going to come here to the bridge, hang out with us. I'm pumped for you guys to meet him, so please mark your calendars. Mostly it's just going to be relational stuff. He kind of wants to check out who we are and just build relationship. But we also probably in that will hold some sort of thing open to the city for anybody that's deconstructing, asking questions, wanting to know, kind of get people that follow him maybe together. And I think, again, that will just be a really practical thing to let people know in the community that we're a safe place. Make sense? Mark your calendars. It's going to be good. If you don't follow him, check him out on Instagram. I think he's got a Facebook thing. Yes. September 17th and 19th is when he'll be here over that weekend. You'll want to be here. If you have any friends or family members that have not been to church, checked out, I think they would dig this guy a lot, so it would be a cool person to invite them to come check out when we do this. He's great. We also then, the next month, will be bringing Steve Crosby here in October. And so I'm equally excited about that later October. JL this is really today, expose our family kind of Sunday. JL for years has harbored bitterness towards Steve Crosby because we usually bring him here around her birthday. And she thinks her birthday should be solely about her and nobody else should be getting attention on that day. And so it's later October that he'll be here. But I really feel like last time Steve was here is when he was teaching on the Eucharist, which was so powerful. And it was so, like, a lot of our community was really excited about that and saw that as something that we would start moving into in a deeper fashion. And then COVID hit shortly after, and we didn't have church for over a year. So anyways, I really feel like it's a perfect time to have Steve here and kind of dive into that deeper as community and maybe with some new aspects to that. The second place I think that we're really going to grow really goes together with this, and it is in, again, just letting people know that we're a safe church for them to be. And so I really see us growing in being more explicitly open and affirming church for all people and genders and sexualities. And so starting to find ways to reach out to the LGBTQ community and let them know that this is a place that they can be safe to walk out faith. I am understanding, again, I think because I hate giving social media this kind of credit, but it's true. I think because of social media, I'm realizing it's not enough to just be a loving community. I mean, it is on one level, but I've always felt like, well, when people come into the church, they'll see that we're loving and accepting and they'll feel safe. But I'm realizing now, because of the damage done by the church world for so long, there's groups of people that would never even walk through the door unless they knew beforehand it was a safe church. Does that make sense? And so I think that's a place that we need to grow. I want to put together a committee to kind of help us get there. So from practical levels, like changing things in our bylaws, to figuring out how to reach out and just support that community, I think that's some ground we need to make. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I would love to get you on a committee and start working that way. Those are just a couple things that I am thinking of from my own standpoint of where we need to grow, change, and see what God has for us as a church. And I'm super excited to hear from all of you and discuss where that is. So does that make sense today? That's it. We're gonna be done. We actually went much longer than I thought, but I think it's because we were being so open about our family today and our issues. We're gonna enter some counseling this week as a family. It's gonna be good. But I'm excited about where we're going. I'm excited about what God has for us as a church. I want you all to believe that you're supposed to be a part of this next season, that you have something to give. There were so many areas of church we didn't even talk about today, didn't even hit on. And so it doesn't matter where you are, what you're feeling. We want to hear about it over these next couple months and see what God might have for us. So be praying about that. Be ready to discuss together. Come to these discussion times ready to kind of talk and listen and just see what God has. And I love you, and I'm excited to continue to just walk out life and faith together. So stick around, hang out, talk for a while, hear more stories about why I'm a dog guy, and we'll see you next week as we just discuss together.